after
yeah.
March. That if you looked at what what I told people was track all of the Bill Gates's patent research, development, investigation, funding, and you can probably predict what's going to happen over the next year if Trump capitulates, which sadly he did. He retweeted me saying he was not going to do capitulate. A week later, sadly, he capitulated. Um, and if there's anything that could doom Trump in 2024, it's this. If
Yeah.
this goes sideways, a large
Yep.
part of his base, as he found out again at his rally last week in Alabama, is not happy with this, and him trying to remind them of it doesn't help him. I mean, it's amazing how many times he's got to be slapped in the face by his own audience for him to realize something. It shows you how out of touch he is otherwise. I
He's
mean, he's just
insulated
watching
right now,
Fox.
Robert.
That's all he's
Yeah.
doing. He's watching Fox, and that's why he's like, "Oh man, people are booing me for saying this about the vaccines." I mean, come on, wake up, get out of just the palm, just quit just watching Fox TV, Trump. He's increasingly like one of those old people that only watch Bill O'Reilly. It's getting annoying. You knew if someone just listened to Bill O'Reilly, you talked to some 70-year-old Florida retiree, and they started echoing things. You're like, what? And then you're like, oh, they just watch Bill O'Reilly each night and think that's all they need to know. And sadly, that's where Trump is to a certain degree. And so, Trump needs constructive criticism because it's the only thing that corrects his path. And but this is the one issue, because if this blows up legally
Yeah.
and politically and medically over time, then Trump's stuck with it, and that could be the one thing that could he could lose a big part of his passionate part of his base. There's a part of his base that doesn't care about this. This is not a do or die issue for them, but there's a part of the base that does. As he found, there were very few cheers and plenty of boos when he brought this up at the Alabama rally. And
And
the fact that
Robert,
he
I
had to,
mean,
you know,
yeah, go ahead. Finish your thought. Go
I would say
ahead.
just the fact that had to happen
Yeah.
is a bad sign concerning Trump's awareness. But politically, if you went back and looked at all what Bill Gates had researched and reviewed, that you would predict that they would do crazy things they've never done before in order to get people to want a mass vaccine that would be rushed and pushed through using experimental technology and mandated on the country, with the long-term future being setting a legal and medical precedent that the government and corporations can own your body and put whatever they want into your body. And if you look at where Bill Gates' other developments have gone, it's to use quantum tattoos, or basically chips in your body, to be your form of digital identification, your digital banking. And he even has developed technology that not only keeps your medical information on that digital chip, but could actually release chemicals into your body. So if you dig into what he believes in, he thinks this is necessary for public health. He's basically a eugenics fan, if you dig in. His family was too. His grandfather was too. Long history of ties to the eugenics movement. That's why he was close pals with Jeffrey Epstein. It wasn't for underage girls. That's not Gates's thing. Gates's thing was the eugenics side of Jeffrey
Yeah,
Epstein.
man. That was a
And
deeply
so,
concerning interview, Robert, with what's his name? I mean, with
Mr. CIA boy, former.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
it's very
Yeah,
appropriate that he sat down with Anderson Cooper, because Anderson Cooper, son of the Rockefeller family, the Rockefellers, the number one champions of eugenics in America, and Bill
Yep.
Gates and his father have repeatedly stated that their inspiration for their foundation, their inspiration for their public health strategies, their inspiration for their PR strategies in the public health space was the Rockefellers. And the Rockefeller, it's kind of ironic that a Rockefeller-inspired idea would lead to selling a questionable drug or mandating it up on the world, given that great granddaddy Rockefeller was an actual snake oil salesman. An actual snake oil salesman.
An actual snake.
Yeah.
About 6 days before the rally in Alabama, and this is what you have to take notice of this stuff. He's talking to Newsmax, and they say, Mr. President, these boosters, the FDA says this, this whatever the CDC is saying this, Pfizer is saying that, and he basically, just like an old school Queens guy, was like, this starting to sound like a money making scam to me, right? That's what he said.
Yeah,
And
it was
that
pretty good.
is the
First
right
time he
instinct.
broke ranks on the vaccine mandate agenda.
But then something happens, Robert. Something happens. And then he goes back to this was always a very serious risk for him. Let it, first of all, right now, it's around Joe Biden's neck and it's pulling him down. So why on earth would you try to save him from that? This idea that you'd rush to take credit for this is not wise because there's just so much unknown. You could later take credit if it turns out all right, Robert. I mean, you could do that later.
Well, the thing
You
is,
don't have to do it now.
they're never going to give him credit if it goes well. That's never going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
Fantasyland imagination. That's just because the lie they sold him all the way back then. They told him back then, first, you have to go along with the lockdowns and Fauci and Birx, otherwise you'll be responsible for millions of old people dying. Number one, and that was the negative fear pitch. That was the stick. And then the carrot was, hey, you show that you can develop a vaccine before anybody, and that's faster, and that's the big solution, and you'll be the hero. You'll be the one who rescued the economy and millions of people. And he bought into it, and he really believed he wouldn't get the blame for the lockdowns, and he would get the credit for the vaccines when just the opposite happened. And so he never understood that. He never appreciated that. That's how the game was always going to be played from day one. And he's still in denial about that. And he also doesn't understand that his base is not for this. So it's because, the Trump that was politically aware, because at core, Trump is a marketer more than he's anything. He's a populist in by instinct. He's not a populist by ideas or scholarly work or anything. Right. That's why he called it popularist. I mean, it's not like he's not a historian. God bless Trump, but that's not what he is. And so he doesn't sit around reading, philosophy books, history books, policy books. That's not it. Give me the 2-second pitch so that I can go out and do it. Now, he's as good at that as anybody has ever been in the history of American politics. And that's why he's a critical ally for the populist cause and why he will always have an advantage in any primary contest. But his limitations are these other limitations. And this is one area that's just real high risk. Maybe everything goes great, but there's going to be about a fifth to a quarter of the country that is only going to get more embittered to the degree to which a vaccine is forced upon them as a condition of employment or travel or transportation or education or the rest. They're not going to be like, golly gee, it's okay now. They're going to be permanently embittered. The pro-vaccine folks have turned a movement that was, what do you think? 2 to 5% of the country was really attuned to these issues and was very skeptical of the vaccine industry. Now that's at least 20 to 25% of the country. They've increased it by tenfold overnight, and I don't think they understand that. That
60%. You saw the numbers, Robert.
Yeah.
60% do not believe these that children should be forced to get this vaccine before. Somebody from locals just said new poll question. Because we're going to add the generic ballot, and I can't believe actually how interested people were in this poll. Right? I was always, you remember, I was a little bit worried that it's the summer, people are not going to be paying. They are paying attention. Now we're coming up on Labor Day. School is starting. And somebody said, new poll question, add the generic ballot. I want to do. But also add whether or not, if you're vaccinated, will you get the booster? That's a great question to add. It really is. Because Robert suggested, if you look at the numbers, folks, the vaccine passport question is basically even. But when you ask about what that means, do you for flying, for school, for weddings, for what else did we include in there? Just so much I forget myself. Job. Should your employer, that was the most opposed, that and children. Should your employer be able to fire you if you don't get vaccinated? It's overwhelming. It's like 58% of the country saying no, and the spread is big. So it's not like 58, high, 40, what? It's 30s.
It's your hardcore professional class Democrats are the only ones who believe in these mandates. For everyone else, even the people that have been vaccinated or intend to get vaccinated, it's deeply offensive to them that somebody could lose their job, their kid could not go to school, someone couldn't get on a plane or a train or a bus. That someone couldn't go to a wedding, that someone couldn't go to a funeral, that someone could not get medical treatment. I mean, that's when I guess we'll add next. Should someone be denied access to a doctor or a hospital if they've not been vaccinated? I mean, I can't believe that number is going to be any better than the others. You only have a quarter to a third of the country that believes in these mandates. Now, The problem is they're disproportionately lawyers, judges, doctors, teachers,
Yeah.
politicians,
The
bureaucrats.
ones who make the
etc.
damn policy, man. Yeah. That's the,
You have
that is
judges
the issue.
who are issuing vaccine mandates. So how is a judge going to preside? Who do you sue? Who do you sue? I mean, I have a client, a judge in New York, wants to sue the. It's like, okay, we're looking at it, but I'm like, I'm going to the same. Am I going to have to go to the same judges to decide whether those judges are violating the law?
Yeah.
I mean, we've
That's
never had
great.
this, to my knowledge, never had this problem before. So they're I think they don't understand at all the risk of what they're doing. You see what's happening in Australia. You see what's happening in New Zealand. You see what's happening in Canada. These are not things a majority of Americans want to have happen here. But ever since the Nazi era embarrassed the state power over the human being in the eugenics movement, they've always wanted to find a pretext to go back and get that power, and they've rushed this to do so. But the problem is they don't have enough people terrified of the disease or confident in the vaccine to make this work. If this was really smallpox, you'd have 3 to 4% of people.
Of course,
injected.
yes.
Everyone would be okay. I understand. It's that if this was really Walking Dead territory, you're going to get the 90+% compliance.
Hi folks, Rich Baris, the People's Pundit, host of Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit, and co-host of What Are the Odds with Barnes and Barris. If you liked what the New York Post called above average transparency, then go ahead and like the page, share the videos, and hit that notification bell. It'll let you know when we're going to go live.